Okay, good morning, Stacey, and thank you so much for joining us today and to talk about the experience of using Quitch for training your staff in the IT area at the University of Newcastle. And really for the attendees, this session, it will be recorded, and it's really about telling your story and how you've been able to use Quitch. What are the challenges that has helped you overcome with some of the training you've had? So of course, over the last few years, we've all had the issue with remote training versus face-to-face and so on. So Stacey, I thought if we can start really with you giving everybody a bit of a background on what you have been doing up to this date, and then we'll step through some questions if that's okay. So over to you, Stacey.
Sure. So I've been working in the IT industry for about 15 years, the last 2 of which have been in the role of self-service analyst with the University of Newcastle. The purpose of my role is to enable our clients to better understand, to get a better understanding of technology and provide access to tools where they can self-solve IT-related issues and questions. Doing so means that our clients don't have to wait on support from IT services, and they can get on with their work or studies. This also frees up our IT staff to focus on more complex tasks and emerging technologies.
Great, fantastic. So Stacey, did you say 2 years you've been in that role at the University of Newcastle?
Yes, I've been at the University of Newcastle longer. Previously, I was in a supervisory role, but I wanted to sort of move into an area where I could utilise my skills with analytics and also some programming as well.
Okay, fantastic. So it's good to have that background. So Stacey, in terms of then of when you came into this role a couple of years ago and looking at the challenges that were faced by yourself and the team and so on, can you just maybe give us some background of what were some of those challenges? Because it could be that other people here can relate to those, and then see if we can talk through what the solution ended up being for you. So maybe a little bit about the challenges that were faced.
Yeah. So we had an onboarding process that involved 3 weeks of face-to-face training. This was often an overload of information and resulted in a lack of engagement with our trainees. The training materials were also printed in this big, thick manual, and being in the IT industry, that quickly became out of date and was hard to maintain. The different supervisors that we had conducting the training meant that the training and information provided wasn't always consistent, especially with the manual quickly going out of date. And having that 3 weeks of face-to-face full-time training meant that the other supervisors not conducting the training would have an increased workload, and these normal supervisory tasks would fall behind. The other issue that we had was a lack of analytics. So it was hard to determine which areas the trainee was having difficulty with. So after they went through the training process and went to support calls and on-site support, there was often areas that hadn't been covered and they weren't strong with. So it meant our clients weren't getting the best experience as well.
Okay, so if I were to summarize that, there was that lack of consistency in terms of those different people delivering that training. There was added workload on people when you were doing that face-to-face training, and then lack of analytics in terms of where were the areas of difficulty for content, or who were the people who might need some additional support, so that ultimately your clients could get a better experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and I think I'd have to say, Stacey, I think they're issues that all of us face when we're training staff, regardless almost in what particular area it is, but we want to know, who knows what, and we want to know what are those areas people are just not understanding, so that we can develop further training and focus less on those areas that we see, for example, people have kind of blitzed their way through. Okay, that's great to have that background and so on. And then I guess some of the other questions I have for you around that was, you were then looking for obviously a solution there. And why was it that you decided on a mobile solution, and why gamified, and why Quitch, I guess, in terms of the different things that you looked at? What were some of the solutions that helped you there?
So we wanted to look at a solution that delivered self-paced learning we wanted to have something that improved that onboarding process. We wanted to have a uniform training process, so we needed that consistency with the information. And we also wanted to encourage online learning, especially too because we're promoting online learning with our clients, so they can self-solve a lot of these IT related issues.
So then in terms of that online learning versus the face-to-face, is it your intention then to do it like of a blended or hybrid model where there's some face-to-face and some online going forward, or will you convert everything to online? What are the plans there? What do you see, I guess, is the best solution?
So I think that there's always going to be that need for face-to-face training, but we want to be able to manage that. So the more that we can have online self-solving, self-learning, the better. And then being able to use that analytics to focus our face-to-face training is extremely important. Also, too, there are some areas that we need to focus the face-to-face, especially when we have new platforms come on board and things like that.
Yeah, and in terms of that when you brought Quitch into the University of Newcastle and so on, what kind of feedback, Stacey, were you getting from both the learner's point of view, but also, I guess, the educator's point of view, now that they could update almost instantly if there was any changes and so on to content?
Yeah, so the learners loved the new improved process, especially too because they came out of it feeling a lot more confident. The information that they were getting was consistent. They could go back to those resources in future, especially too because we're now able to update those resources online. We don't have to go back to a physical manual, which is just so hard to maintain. The trainers that were doing the training found it great because they could update that information on the fly. They could have people doing the training come back and ask any questions, so there wasn't as much of a need for that face-to-face training, so they could get on with the tasks that they had. And also to having that analytics, they could just comb through as the person was going through the learning, work out what areas they really need to focus on, and then go back to the person and just cover that with that face-to-face aspect. Yeah,
so again, that guidance on, in terms of the content, what were those areas of difficulty and so on?
So the areas of difficulty that we did have was more around some of the technical side of things with the first level support process. Especially at a university, there's a range of systems. So we've got online systems that we've got to cover. We've got on-site desktop support, various devices. So unfortunately with each user, they have different sort of points where they've got strong points in certain areas and then weak points. So that's where that analytics really came in helpful for us, because we're able to focus more on the individual rather than across the board in covering that training, which was great because that meant that we were having that coverage across the board with all of our new people coming on board.
Yeah, fantastic. No, it sounds like it's just has been such a good solution for the University of Newcastle, Stacey, so that's fantastic. And I guess one of the other things that you and I have talked about was the fact that Quitch is now, I should say, fully integrated with Microsoft Teams. And I know you use Microsoft Teams extensively at the university. Will this make life a little bit easier for you again in terms of now being able to do that training, either face-to-face or remotely, but you can see that level of engagement as you conduct the training? What are your thoughts around that?
That's really important for us, because we find that in the past, when we've had that face-to-face training, we can't always gauge when our staff are sort of dropping off. We need to know that they're engaging through the training, that they're getting that information, that they're understanding that information, and that's really sunk in so they can sort of move forward. With Quitch going into teams, it means that we can be more interactive with our staff. So we can put out questions to them, get their feedback, find out if anyone's having any issues in a certain area, if someone's sort of disengaged from the training. And that helps us to also improve our training as we move through the rest of the team as well. There are training that we conduct with different teams as well. So once we've sort of gone through our area and we know that this is working, we can then move on to other areas for training as well.
Okay, fantastic. It all makes sense. And Stacey, I guess, so you've talked about a range of improvements that have resulted since you implemented Quitch as that solution for your staff training. Do you want to just elaborate on some of them or give us a little bit more on what specifically were some of those improvements that made you decide to then expand this program further?
So probably the most important things that we had was the improvement in consistency of information that we're providing. The quality of information that we had in our knowledge base was improved. We had a reduction in the amount of time that was spent delivering that on that one-to-one training. So that meant that we were actually able to save money through training with the whole onboarding process. So when we did the figures, we saved approximately a little over $2,000 per individual, or a little over $40,000 over the previous 12-month period. So it's made a big difference to our team, especially with the supervisors and the cost savings around it. So Quitch has really been beneficial. Also the engagement with our team as well. Through the competitive leaderboards, we can see that our team is sort of really focused on being able to see who can actually get to the top, which is interesting. If they miss a question or if something isn't quite right, then they go back and they'll often come and ask us as well. They're like, I didn't get this question right. I'm really upset because now I've missed my streak. And then you can sort of go through it with them, and to see that engagement is really encouraging.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that's so true, Stacey, what you've described there, that gamification element, and that I think really most of us have that kind of competitive streak at the end of the day. And I think one of the other things we heard was about the fun. It's a bit of fun while you're learning as well. And you are, yes, trying to compete against your colleagues and get to the top of that leaderboard, but also the ability, as you said, to be able to go back. If I didn't understand something, there are all of the resources. I can test myself, reread them, rewatch the videos, and then just make sure that I can actually get those questions right. So from that personal view, I think for the learner as well, for the staff, it's actually seeing, again, that guidance on that I as an individual, okay, I can see through the traffic light system, these are the areas I need to improve on. So again, I don't have to go back through the whole course because I know I've understood 80% of it, but there's this 20% that I've really struggled with. So I need to go back and fix that up and improve that area. Yeah. But I think, that's a fantastic savings as well for the university in terms of the individual. Just over $2,000 per individual. Fantastic to see that outcome for you guys as well. And especially given all of the issues that universities have been through over the last number of years, we need to be able to save every dollar that we can as well. And at the same time, if we can do that while improving the learning outcomes, it's a fantastic win, I think, for us both. I'm really, I guess, excited about the other improvement areas you've talked about there, that consistency of learning now across the whole program, so we're not having different people deliver and so on, the quality of that and the ability to be able to update as it changes and so on. And of course, for everybody, the time saved as well can obviously makes a huge difference in terms of us delivering on the outputs that we want over the time. And also, I noticed you also mentioned it encouraged ongoing learning. So that was another, I think, important thing, that people were keen to get involved in different programs. And I guess some of the other questions then, because we'll soon wrap up. We have about 20 minutes, so we've got 4 minutes to go, Stacey. Mm-hmm. So I guess some of the other things we wanted to cover or talk to some people in other universities and IT departments about who are facing similar challenges. What kind of recommendations or what suggestions might you make for them? And what are some of the next steps for the University of Newcastle and Quitch?
So the next steps for the university in Quitch is to use Quitch for our live training sessions with the Teams integration. We feel like that's the natural next step for us, and also to roll it out with onboarding of staff in different teams and areas of the university. Just because like it's worked so well for us, we feel that this would be really beneficial for staff in other areas, especially where they have a lot of new onboarding staff. The university likes to use a lot of students, and there's constantly a revolving door of new students coming through, getting work experience, and because that onboarding process takes a lot of time, we feel that Quitch will be really beneficial with that.
Okay, fantastic. That sounds very exciting for the future where we're at, Stacey. And then, yeah, in terms of so people in other universities or other institutions, doesn't necessarily need to be a university, facing similar challenges, have you anything you would like to say to them?
So it's really important to make sure that the training is uniform and engaging, so that way you can get the best start with new employees. With the IT industry, it's always changing, and it's good to use technology like Quitch that enables you to change with it. There's also a need to have that face-to-face training. That'll always be there. Yeah. So it's good to be able to utilize analytics where you see so you can see where you need to focus that training done in person. This will give you the best results, especially as we're all individuals and we learn in different ways, and we're going to have like strong and weak points in different areas.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, that we do all learn in different ways. That's exactly right. And for some of us, we can pick things up very quickly, or one particular area will be really simple and straightforward for me. Somebody else might struggle in that area, and then of course the other way around as well. And I think, as you say, that's what is one of the great kind of outcomes of Quitch, is that personalized learning journey for people as well. And if it takes me 10 times to watch that resource or read that resource to understand it, at least I can test in my own time, and then I can have that confidence that I have actually understood the content and so on. So Stacey, we're just about out of time. So I do want to say a huge thank you for coming along and talking to us today and sharing the story of yourself and the training needs of the university, and also the outcomes, which I think is really important for people to understand, and hopefully can help people out in different institutions across the country and across the globe indeed. So Stacey, again, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure working with you, and we're excited about the next stage as well, and of course the working with the University of Newcastle with their Teams integration as well. So nice. A huge thank you to you, Stacey.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Take care now.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.